Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit obviously has significance in the sense that rather than be passive about things, he's going into the heart or into the heat of the current environment over there. Clearly, the relationship is going to expand, deepen, and become more intensive. Even during the Kargil war, it was Israel that provided the targeted, weaponry, laser-guided missiles, the unmanned aerial vehicles for surveillance purposes. Cut to the Operation Sindoor. Israeli weapons, particularly long-range standoff weapons, were used. Pakistan is developing a missile called Ababil, which is about 2,000 kilometer missile. It has, these multiple warheads in the missile, which follow independent trajectory, which is called the MIRV missile. I'm told that Israel is going to supply all the weapons that it had not supplied even in the past.
What role exactly does India play in the tension that's being seen in the Middle East? Hello and a very warm welcome to all. My name is Aisha Varma and this is Point Blank. On today's show, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's two-day visit to Israel comes at a time when the Middle East is on edge. From the Gaza war to spiraling US-Iran tensions, putting every diplomatic move under a regional microscope. His trip is essentially aimed at deepening India-Israel strategic, defense and technology ties, even as New Delhi tries to balance this outreach with its own stated support for Palestinian statehood and regional stability. Joining us at this point is HT's executive editor, Mr. Shishir Gupta. Sir, namaskar. Sir, America has a massive military buildup in the Middle East. Israel is on high alert at this point. Is this visit not a little risque?
Well, if you look at the current US deployment in the Middle East, you look at the entire Middle East being on the edge, particularly Israel, because it expects that if anything that happens in Iran, which US does, there'll be retaliation on Israel. Of course, it appears to be risky, but then, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit obviously has significance in the sense that rather than be passive about things, he's going into the heart or into the heat of the current environment over there, trying to, be there, talk to the Israelis. He has good relations with the Iranians. He has good relations with Saudi Arabia. He has good relations with the Gulf countries. In fact, he's traveled to all the Gulf countries. And so in a sense, that Prime Minister is also sending a message that he's going over there for to sort of advocate peace and diplomacy, to advocate, how, there is need for, things to cool down in the Middle East. So in a way, he is doing what a global leader is expected to do. He's going over there rather than sitting tight and giving sort of, various statements, polemical statements. He's going there into the place. And right now, the atmosphere is absolutely charged up over there. But then, this is what Prime Minister is all about. This is what New India is all about.
So what can we expect from this visit essentially? Because there are reports that India is going to be getting long-range standoff weapons as well.
See, first of all, what do we expect out of the visit is that, there is India which engages with global powers like US, China, Russia, Europe. Then there is this India which is now starting engaging in regions. So in India, particularly under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has actually invested a lot into Middle East. I mean, we have very close friends in UAE. We have very close friends in Israel. We have very close friends with other Gulf, countries. And we talk to them on a daily basis. It's not, it's actually, sometimes there are people within the Indian leadership who are on WhatsApp with all these top leaders. So one aspect is that this is part of the regional diplomacy. Second thing is what is going to come out of it. Clearly, the relationship is going to expand, deepen, and become more intensive. Now, there are various aspects to it. There is this aspect of science and technology, where talking about quantum computing, cyber security, artificial intelligence. There is this aspect about agriculture, where you move to the next step. You don't talk about just drip irrigation. You move to the next step. There is research and development. Then there is this huge step where India and Israel have been long-term defense partners. Despite the previous governments trying to not engage Israel for their own vote bank purposes, fact remains is Israel has been a very close and a trusted ally when it comes to defense partnerships. I mean, even during the Kargil war, it was Israel that provided the targeted weaponry, laser-guided missiles, the unmanned aerial vehicles for surveillance purposes, and it also provided a whole lot of force multipliers to the Indian Air Force also. Now, cut to the Operation Sindoor. Israeli weapons, particularly long-range standoff weapons, were used to take out terrorist camps. You had the Indian forces using Palm 200 to 400, which was of the Indian Navy, which is an Israeli weapon, loitering ammunition. You had Harpy, Harop, loitering ammunition used by the Indian Air Force. You had Rampage missiles, which Israeli missiles being used on Bahawalpur, which is Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters, and on Murid-K, along with the BrahMos missiles. So the Israeli weapons have been there, and Israelis' missiles are top-of-the-line missiles. And even if you look into the past, what you see is even the anti-tank weapons we actually import from Israel for tackling powers like China, which we did during the May 2020 transgressions. Now, what has happened is over the years there has been our Western neighbor, that is Pakistan. It has developed using Chinese radars. It is being able to mount air defense systems on a longer range. So we need longer range missiles to take out those systems, and that is where Israel comes in. I mean, Israel has top of the line missiles, be it sort of air launch ballistic missiles, be it long range missiles like Rampage, be it the latest being the iron beam laser weapons, which are used for taking out long range missiles fired by the adversary. There is a reason why India is looking for long range missiles from them, because what had happened was that during Operation Sindoor, Pakistan nearly fired about 1,000 missiles towards India, including ballistic missiles. And we took out a whole lot of them. In fact, there was hardly any damage anywhere. And in that way, we are looking towards Israel for joint development of such systems. And that is what is going to happen. I'm told is that Israel is going to supply all the weapons that it had not supplied even in the past. So that is why the defense partnership becomes much more deeper. It expands to a different level. And on top of that, there is this close relationship, personal relationship between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And you can see it and you can feel it. That's the way it is. So, in all, if you look at the entire thing, it's going to be a very, very important visit. It is going to be a very critical visit. And it is a visit which is a win-win for both the countries.
So, bouncing off of this, you are the one who had broken the story about how Israel and India are essentially joining hands for anti-missile defense. How exactly does this fit into the Prime Minister's Mission Sudarshan Chakra, which was mentioned in the last Independence Day speech?
You see, India, after Operation Sindoor, India realized that, it has to protect itself and its population from, the ballistic missiles or the long-range standoff weapons which the Pakistanis had fired. Now, India is more worried about Pakistan because that is the unscrupulous power. It is less worried about China because at least with China we can talk. There is this sense of it's a question of two mature big powers. Here it's a question of a wannabe, a pretender who wants to sort of show off. So in that case, you have to be very clear as to be prepared as to what he's going to do. So they had fired ballistic missiles, Fateh 1, Fateh 2. They fired the Chinese, I think CM 400 missile on India through JF-17 fighter. Now, for that, what you need to handle or have missiles which neutralize the missiles launched by the enemy, either through the moment it is launched or during the terminal phase. Now, what has happened is Pakistan is developing a missile called Ababil, which is about 2,000 kilometer missile. It has, these multiple, warheads in the missile, which follow independent trajectory, which is called the MIRV missile. Now, this missile is being developed. So what will happen is that, once the missile is launched, once the bomblets are released, then it's impossible to really take care of the missile. So you need to target that missile in the boost phase or in the terminal phase. And that is where the Israelis come in. Now, what has happened is in last year when Iran actually fired at Israel, Israel was able to neutralize 498 missiles out of the 500 fired at them. So Israelis have a very good developed anti-ballistic missile system. And if you look at the various systems that they're doing now, they're using, the Iron Dome. They use the Iron Dome. They use the David Sling, and then they use the Arrow systems, Arrow 3. Similarly, they're now developing the Iron Beam systems to take down the trajectory using high laser weapons. So they are top of the line on that. And we need something to ensure that we need to have radars, aircraft, satellites to detect the launch. Then we need to have long-range stand-off weapons to neutralize the launch. So it works two ways. So you have what is Mission Sudarshan Chakra at the end of the day? It is basically detecting first and then neutralizing. So you neutralize in various ways. So you have somewhere where you will use missiles which will be neutralizing at 100 kilometers. Somewhere you will have missiles which you will neutralize at 250 kilometers. Somewhere you will have missiles which are neutralized at 400 kilometers. So you will have various stages, and that's how it is done. So Mission Sudarshan Chakra is actually the key to Indian security currently, given that all the countries are using standoff missiles, they're using loitering ammunition, and then they're using kamikaze drones, swarm drones. Now, China has it, Pakistan has it, and one has to be careful. So in that context, India is exploring the anti-ballistic missile systems with Israel. The basic idea being that these will be jointly developed with Israel in India so that you can take care of the enemy in the worst case scenario. It's a big project, but it is a project that is required as of yesterday.
Now, speaking of worst case scenarios, what exactly is happening between US and Iran at this point? Because we've already spoken a bit about the massive military buildup. But beyond this, you have talks in Geneva, which are going to be taking place, the third round of talks. You have the Iranian FM, Abbas Araghchi, as well as the US envoy, Steve Witkoff, who's going to be present at that point. You have Trump's 10-day deadline to ensure that a deal is reached. Otherwise, things will be taken further with Iran. Tell us more about what's taking place here.
See, there are these various aspects of there is this dialogue, and then there is this coercive diplomacy, and then there is a military deployment. Even today, you see, American F-22 aircraft landing up in Negev Desert in Israel. And you see the buildup all over the place. Now, there was initially this thing that the Middle East countries will not allow the Americans to fly over them, while targeting Iran. I think even that is now being diluted in many ways. So what is happening is that the buildup is continuing. Gerald Ford aircraft carrier is moving towards weapon launching positions. There is this dialogue that is taking place in Geneva. The fact remains is that Iranians are not backing down. They have to do three things. They have to sort of, cap their nuclear program, enrichment program, which they are not doing. They have to cap their ballistic missile program, which they do not agree to. And third thing is that they have to sort of, ensure that, these protesters are not really sort of, targeted and brutally massacred. So it's not looking good either way, because whether it is President Donald Trump, who has to prove domestically that he has to deliver after the US Supreme Court, pushed his entire tariff agenda out of the window. So he has to do something about it before the midterm elections. You have Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, who has to prove to the world that he is the Shia shoulder of Islam, and he can take on the Saturn that is projected to be US. So you are into mix of egos, you are into mix of military deployments, and it is not looking good. Now, question is that, it's what 10-day deadline. Once the 10-day deadline expires, then they have to assess as to what has happened, and then they have to take a call. Now, it can be 10-day deadline plus 1 hour, it can be 10-day deadline plus 5 days, but things are not too good. And with Iran, I mean, US and Iran have a very, very, relationship which is absolute cross purposes. So I don't think so it is going to go out so easily.
So what role exactly does India play in the tension that's being seen in the Middle East?
See, India is one power which can talk to everybody. It can talk to Iran. It can talk to Saudi Arabia. It can talk to UAE, very close ally. It can talk to Jordan, again a close ally. It can talk to Bahrain. It can talk to Kuwait. Prime Minister has been all over the place. And he has this personal relationship with all the leaders. It's not that India is only looking towards Israel. India has close relationships with all the Gulf countries. So India in that way is exercising pure strategic autonomy where it is dealing with all. It can talk to Israel. Prime Minister can pick up the phone and talk to anybody over there. So in that way, India can have a very, calming effect on all these powers and talk to them and communicate to each other as to what the other side is saying. So in that way, it's a very big role. For instance, like US cannot talk to Iran, India can. For instance, like, Iran can't talk to Israel, India can. So all this is, India can use its good offices to sort of, maintain the process of dialogue and diplomacy and peace. But at the end of the day, it is for them to take a call as to what it really is. Because India played a role in Ukraine war. It did not instigate the war. It was not involved in the war. It was trying to sort of stop the war. India played a similar role in Gaza, despite India making it very clear that October 7, 2023 was a terrorist attack. So India makes its position very clear. See, Aisha, what has happened is before 2014, India was, didn't really want to overtly engage Israel. I mean, it had given Israel, it recognized Israel way back in 1948, but the ties became very close only after 1992. And India had recognized Palestine also, right? But the fact remains is that India, the Indian political leaders, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, diplomats, everybody wanted to stay away from the Israel because it was protecting a particular vote bank. With Prime Minister Modi, he engages everyone. He is the closest of allies in UAE. I mean, they virtually have they just do tea diplomacy in the sense that Mohammed bin Zayed, the crown prince, the president of UAE, just lands up, has a cup of tea, stays in India for 3 hours and brings in the entire entourage and discuss and then go back. Similarly, with Israel, India is totally with them on terrorism, even with UAE. There is this entire dialogue of counter-radicalization with Jordan, with UAE. So India is engaged in a very big way in Middle East, and that's happened purely after 2014. Let me say that to you also. India has relations with Taliban. India has relations, so India can talk to anybody. And that is what India brings to the table. And that is why India need not be worried that, Prime Minister going to Israel and people will take things, will take in another way or get unhappy about it, because Prime Minister has been to all these countries. And if you look at what is happening is, the Israel visit is that before you look at the past 7 months, majority of the Israeli ministers have traveled to India. If you look at the Indian ministers, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, they've all traveled to Israel. And other ministers also, Agriculture Minister, other ministers have also traveled. So there has been a build-up to the entire thing. And India is engaging Israel, but not at the cost of other Gulf countries. It's engaging Israel in its own interest, strategic interest, so that the bilateral relationship improves and the global relationship or the regional relationship also remains very stable.
So the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has essentially spoken about a hexagon alliance where we find the mention of Greece, Cyprus, India, Middle East allies as well. Tell us more about this.
It is the vision of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, where he talked about alliance between India, Israel, Middle East allies, Greek, Cyprus, etc., etc. Now, this is what Prime Minister Netanyahu is thinking about. Now, as far as India is concerned, India is looking deepening of economic cooperation with the Gulf countries, Israel and other allies on the Mediterranean, particularly Greece and Cyprus. Now, this is essentially two things. One is that India is already starting to talk to Israel on the Foreign Trade Agreement, FTA. In fact, currently, an Israeli team is there, and this entire dialogue is going to continue till February 26. Second thing, what he's talking about is, simply put, is actually India-Middle East Economic Corridor. Now, the same corridor which was sort of, brutally ripped apart by the Hamas attack, because it was virtually on way to becoming a reality. Now, what you're looking at is India sending its goods to Fujairah in UAE. From Fujairah, it goes to Jordan via Saudi Arabia. And from there, it goes to Haifa port in Israel. And from there, it can go to Haifa. And if things are all right, it also can go through Beirut. And then going to Mediterranean ports like Cyprus, Greece, Naples, Marseille, and basically bring all of them into an economic corridor. So once an economic corridor is made and once everybody comes in close over there, then you can look at enhancing the ties. This is what it is all about. It's not about any alliance, so to speak. This is the vision of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What we see is a India-Middle East economic corridor that runs through Israel, that runs through a very close ally, UAE, that runs through a close ally, Jordan, Saudi Arabia.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us and bringing us more perspective on all of this. With that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned for more.